Good morning, everyone. Road safety is everybody's responsibility. It transcends age, gender, profession and postcode. So whether you're a driver, a passenger, a pedestrian, a cyclist, a motorcyclist or getting about on some sort of rideable like an e-scooter, we appreciate your support in joining us today. My name is Samantha Heathwood and I'm honoured to join the Australian Road Safety Foundation for this very important conversation. Today's event, The Moment Time Stopped, is more than a campaign theme, it's an alarm. It's a much needed wake-up call. Last year, 1,306 Australians were killed on our roads. That's 1,306 moments where time stopped for an Australian. Families shattered, futures cut short, communities left reeling. And the heartbreaking reality is that so many of these moments were entirely preventable. Today we bring together voices from all corners of the road safety story. Those who work to prevent trauma, those who respond to it, those who live with its consequences every day, and those using their platform to drive meaningful change. It's not always an easy conversation, but it is a vital one, because behind every statistic is a son, a daughter, a parent, a partner, or a friend. And behind every choice is the potential to save a life. So let's meet our incredible panel. Today we have Russell White, who is the chair of the Australian Road Safety Foundation and a national leader in road safety, education and advocacy. Craig Lowndes, professional supercar driver and ARSF ambassador. He combines the precision and perspective of a life spent at speed on the track with a passion for protecting people on the road. Nick Bell, having served 30 years as a critical incident first responder, Nick has been at the scene of many serious crashes and now continues to fight for better outcomes through education. So thank you for joining us too. And Kent Payne. Kent lost his son, his 18-year-old son Harry, in a crash that should never have happened. In the face of personal grief, his courage and advocacy through the Harrison Payne Initiative are nothing short of extraordinary. So thank you for joining us today. And of course, from long-standing RSF partner Amy, we welcome Executive Manager Kylie Horton, representing a team that sees the impact of road trauma daily and is working to help stop it through technology, insight and leadership. So each of our panellists brings a deeply personal perspective, and I have no doubt their stories will move us all today. So let's get started. Segment 1, understanding the true cost of road trauma. Kent, I'm going to ask you this first. Given today's panel theme, I'd like to start with a very deeply personal moment. Can you help those watching understand what it was like when time stopped for your boy, Harry? Can you take us back to the moment when your family's life changed forever?
Absolutely, Sam. So the 30th of May 2021, it was a Sunday, and it's a day for my family that we'll never forget, you know, for all the wrong reasons from that perspective. So it certainly stopped for us and has changed the way has shaped our lives, you know, from now and from the last 4 years. It'll be 4 years, obviously at the end of this month. But you know, it's from Noah, my eldest son, and I remember the day vividly where he was catching a plane back to Sydney, because he was up for the weekend, and Noah got the phone call to say that Harry had been in a crash, and so we didn't know how serious it was, etc. Then obviously we learnt very quickly that, you know, Harry was killed instantly, you know, that afternoon, and it's changed not only our life but Harry's friends, the wider community, and yeah, it's a ripple effect, right? It just affects so many people over such a long period of time, and it lasts forever. It's not something that comes and goes and that type of thing, but it's something that's impacted the wider community, and still to this day we've got, you know, friends, family, you know, impacted by the loss of Harry, which, as you said, shouldn't have happened. It's just taken its toll on lots of people.
Thank you for that, Kent. Nick, I'm just going to ask you the next question. In your decades as a first responder, you've attended scenes that most of us can't imagine. We often hear about the victims and their families, but the ripple effect of the trauma, like Kent just explained, is far wider. What's it like for first responders, and what stays with you the most?
Well, look, I'm going to put a very human sort of spin on this because as a watch commander, I responded to and took operational command of these incidents, and really in the 5 fire districts, I would respond to every single one of these fatalities because it was my job. And I remember, I always remember, even when I first became an officer, you'd get the call over the PA and it was a fatality or reported fatalities, a car crash, there's a truck rollover and persons trapped, family trapped, children involved and so on. And every fibre in my body would be screaming at me not to go to this job. It was really a fight almost for my personal inside, the little boy in me screaming, don't go, you'll see things you don't want to see and so on. And then the other side, the professional side, is I'm on duty and I jumped in my car and I got there as quick as I possibly could. And getting there to these jobs was, it is life altering, and it changes the way you think, and it changes perspective, and it changes everything. It really does. And obviously I've responded to hundreds of these incidents, life involved incidents. And look, I remember, when I was thinking about coming to the panel today, I was thinking about the very first job, the most horrific one I'd been to. I just joined the fire service, and I sort of, like all 24-year-olds, I really had no idea what I was getting myself into. I really didn't know. And we got the call to this high-speed motor vehicle accidents, 2 o'clock in the morning. It's pouring rain. I'd been I'd been in the fire service for about 3 or 4 weeks or something. We responded there, and it was absolutely horrific what the scene was. It was like, welcome to the fire service. And I remember working there with the rest of the crews, and so it was a protracted job. It was particularly horrific, and there was 2 people in the front of the vehicle that were trapped fast, and they had lost limbs and they were bleeding out. So we're talking about a high consequence time poor environment where we had very little margin for error. So I remember being there and certainly supporting one of the people in the front seat who was sitting askew, as it were, behind the driver's seat. And I remember thinking, what am I doing here? And so on. It was a shock. It was a deep shock, because when we are just walking down the road, we see people, it's normal, everybody's got their arms and legs walking, having a coffee or whatever. But when you respond to these things, your eyes haven't seen this before. So it sears itself into your memory in a very deep way. And I'm very, very human, and the cost is enormous. Having said that, I will acknowledge that I could have left the fire service after that first 3 weeks. So moving on from there, the job satisfaction that comes from helping people in their worst possible moments, and I'm telling you, the worst possible moments over 3 decades and hundreds of critical incidents, it is deeply rewarding, but it comes at a great cost. That's my thoughts.
And I suppose you don't ever want to be desensitised to that either, do you?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a myth about that. I've been asked about that before, and I've done some road safety campaigns, and people say, about desensitised. And I don't know, maybe it's just the world according to Nick Bell, and I'm very, very human. I never got desensitised, and I remember just before I left the fire service, it was almost like a sort of gift, for me before I left. I had another fatality. I think it was about 2-3 days before my resignation date from the job, and it was just horrific stuff, and it really is. And I was no more desensitised then than I was, at the very start of my career. So I believe that's a myth, and it's at great cost, but I will acknowledge the rewarding side of it.
Russell, I'm going to ask you, the ARSF exists to prevent tragedies like the ones that we've just heard about, but the road trauma, it's a complex and a multifaceted issue. What's the key message that you want today's audience to walk away with about the true cost of road trauma?
Well, I think from both Nick's perspective and also Kent, they're just 2 single examples of what happens every single day. And you'd be reporting on stories like this every night. I think for us, what we really want people to do is understand that there is a level of personal responsibility, that the small things make a massive difference. And we often say that road safety is a matter of choice, it's not a matter of chance. And I think what we've seen, certainly in the last few years post-COVID, is a real fundamental shift in the way how people look at risk and their own responsibility. And, we again often say the keys to road safety are in our hands. Road trauma is not going to be solved by police in isolation. It's not going to be solved by government, not going to be solved by just building better vehicles. As long as there's humans in the mix, we all have a role. And that role applies whether you're a passenger, you're a driver, you're a cyclist. We've all got our own roles to play. And I think that's the big thing we're sort of saying to people is that there is a time now to really focus on road trauma. The figures that we hear every year are going up. And for every one of those, that's a person. And it's not a number. And again, it's that same person has family, has friends. And I think the great tragedy about road trauma is we never know what we've lost. We don't know if a person's been killed in a road incident, what could they have gone on to do? We'll never know what that loss is. And so equally, we also need to focus, I think, on just re-engaging the community, understanding it's a massive issue. And one thing I say to people a lot, and people are often shocked by the numbers when I say this, but we can never forget that road trauma is the #1 killer of Australian children aged from 1 to 14. It's second only to youth suicide in that 14 to 25-year-old age bracket. It's the #1 thing that's causing death and injury in a workplace. So when it's that level of critical focus, then I think we need to re-engage the community to understand that we're all part of it. And so ultimately, that's really what we're talking about with Fatality Free Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. Kylie, many road users may think that a crash is simply about vehicle damage, but as we've heard, the impact runs much deeper than that. Amy's role is to support victims in the aftermath of road trauma, and your teams do this daily. What do you wish all road users understood about the emotional and community-wide consequences of this issue?
Yeah. Our CTP teams across Australia see the impact of road trauma every day. And as Nick was speaking to, it's far widespread. It's not just the individual, it's the family, the communities, the first responders, health providers, they're all part of that ecosystem. But what we observe every day is that these claims and the aftermath is preventable. It's a simple distraction while driving that is leading to the vast majority of people ending up in vulnerable positions with horrific injuries and the like. So our message is to really think about what you're in control of when you get behind the wheel. It's a vehicle. It can cause significant damage to many, many people across the community.
All right, let's move on to segment 2 now, changing the narrative from normalised risk to actual responsibility. I'm going to ask you, Lanzi, you've spent your life behind the wheel, but in high-performance controlled environments. What's the biggest misconception that you see every day in drivers when it comes to managing risks on the road?
Well, I think that the biggest things that I see driving, and even driving here today, was just, Russell said it really well in the sense of it's up to all of us to have a responsibility. People just are carefree. They basically don't think it's going to happen to them. I saw a number of people using their mobile phones while they're driving down the streets. And that split-second decision of putting your eyes down or away from the road, it can absolutely, time can stop. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned in the racing side of it is that I've spent my whole life educating and trying to be a better driver. And then when you go to the roads, I just would love to see more education for the training side of it and the awareness of the people around you. Even just pulling up at a set of lights and people are really close to the car in front, there is no escape. Like if there is a truck or something comes behind you that just has an issue or problem with a brake or anything else, there is no escape. There's just the awareness and the education side of it. People see me obviously as a professional race driver and the myth of, but you drive fast. But there's a whole array of things that go on in a race event with safety elements. There's fire marshals. We're in a controlled environment. We all wear head to toe race suits, fire retardant material, helmets, gloves, all that in a cage in a race car. But when you go on a public road, and I've always said, and Russell knows this very well, that I'm more worried about being on a public road than I am being on a racetrack.
because of all these whole different array of elements of school zones, oncoming cars, little kids coming out of driveways, even just backing out of a car park. It's just so many different elements. So the awareness side of it, I'd love people just to take a minute to just stop, think, and drive to the conditions that they're in.
I've noticed it myself. I mean, we know that the road toll has gone up every year in the last 5 years. Just even on the M1, or cars are driving so quickly. Do you think because of cameras and things, people are becoming more complacent? I'm noticing people doing fewer shoulder checks. No one's really looking around as much anymore. Drugs seem to be a problem. Drivers on drugs. Someone whizzes past you and you go, oh, they're on drugs, because you can sense that there is a different mentality in drivers on the road, and there seems to be so many more cars on the road too. But it is that whole thing about being aware of your environment, and we all have a responsibility to be safe, don't we?
Absolutely. I think the other thing too is when I say we become complacent, the car technology now has come so far. So with the ABS and the airbags and stability control, everything, people think, well, the car's going to save me, but you're still the operator of that car. And that's the things that we just got to get their awareness and attention around. And as I said, about the education about how to, just be aware of the environment you're in. And I'm looking outside and the conditions are changing. So even being outside on a public road, you can go from one dry section to a wet section, or you got a pothole. There's things around you that you just got to be completely aware of all the time.
Mm-hmm. Russell, the ARSF is releasing new research next week, which reveals a concerning level of complacency, even in the face of fatal risks. What insights stand out most to you, and how do we shift that mindset?
Well, Sam, I think the big thing is that we're still seeing the same things we have traditionally seen. So issues like you mentioned before, distraction, speeding, and that's just not just every going over the speed limit, but it can be driving, as Craig said, above the conditions or the prevailing conditions. And so drink driving, not wearing a seatbelt, those fatal fives that we know about. But I also think, as you just touched on before, there's an apathy that's out there as well of people either, it's not so much they don't care, it's that they don't really know. They don't know what good looks like. They're also willing, though, to change behaviours if they're directed in the right way. And so for us, I think that's probably one of the big things. It's how do we change this narrative that we've had that somehow a crash is just bad luck, or if you get caught for speeding, it's bad luck. It's not looking at it from the personal responsibility side. And I think that's the critical thing we've got to try and turn around, is get people to understand that risk is their risk. And the reality of that is that you make a mistake or you choose the wrong thing, one day, maybe not today or maybe not tomorrow, but somewhere down the track, there'll be a price to pay for that. And as we've heard, that price can be absolutely life-changing. So I think from our standpoint, it's how do we address this apathy that's there? How do we elevate the level of awareness around risk? And more importantly, what does good look like?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Russell. Nick, you've seen firsthand how many of these incidents are entirely preventable. What warning signs are people ignoring? What simple, immediate changes could make the biggest difference, do you think?
Well, it's a complex answer, to be honest with you. And Craig's sitting here and has made a life out of taking massive risk at extremely high speed. So when you look at it from a risk management perspective, it's a very, very high consequence, time poor environment that and he's alive. Here he is, he sits here. And that is and if we can shift our thinking around and say that, look at a causal chain almost, where Craig Lowndes is still alive sitting here and he's safe. And that's because of all the things that Craig just listed about all the safety things that are in place. But so we must say then, we must arrive at the conclusion that it is driver behaviour. And we have to think of it in essentially a causal chain. And I'll give you an example, best way I can illustrate it. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, once again, pouring rain. The Northern Territory is on one of the main roads. High speed, a car, Commodore, had hit a pole, and there was 2 people in there, and you could see, when I arrived, I could see that they were finishing up. They were not going to make it out of this. But of course, there was family around that happened to be following this car. And of course, you have the eyes of the world on you, so to speak, and the cameras arrived and so on, and we were working frantically to get these 2 people out that I knew would not make it. I looked inside the car and I saw these were 2 people I knew, and I knew that young man and I knew the family. I knew him, and I'd known him since he was a child. And I knew that he's 24 years of age, but I knew that around about 13, 14 years of age, this guy had gone off the rails. And the car was unregistered, not roadworthy. He was not licensed. There had been drug, driving charges, all these things, links, if you like, in the causal chain that had led to this event. And we have to I think we have to stop thinking about car accidents as an event in time, whereas it is at the end of a long causal chain, an event over time. And we must pay great attention to all the near misses and all the things that lead to people ultimately being inside two coffins, as the coroner pulled up that night. And I remember looking at this young man that I knew, and I thought, oh my God, and I knew the parents and so on, and I'm just completely and utterly preventable. So we know from Craig sitting here that it's behaviours. That's what it is. It's very, very rarely is it a mechanical fault or a mechanical failure. I just don't buy that. I went to one accident where it was sort of determined that one in 30 years, that's one, but the rest is behavioural stuff. If we change behaviours, then we can stop the causal chain from ending in tragedy, because at the end of the causal chain, we've got coffins, we've got loss, we've got failure, and we've got as I understand it, each death on the road, and I'm not to bring it back to trivialise it, but it's about $3 million plus, and it costs us $30 billion a year in road costs and trauma. And shouldn't we spend $29 billion a year on preventative? We'll save $1 billion. I mean, why don't we look at it from a business perspective?
Kylie, technology and data are powerful tools in prevention. How is AAMI using these to invest in smarter, more proactive approaches to reduce road trauma?
Yeah, so we know at AAMI that cars can be replaced, but humans certainly cannot. So we've introduced our AAMI Drivers Reward program, and it's part of our AAMI mobile app. And what that does is it collects data on behaviours. So our participants who have signed up, we use the data through their vehicle and the app to send them back some insights around their behaviours and how they could improve on that. It's really pleasing to see that in the last couple of years we've collected 270 million kilometres worth of data, and over half of our participants have improved in their driving behaviours. So they are rewarded through the app and recognised for that. So for us, I think that's a step forward in showing that there is ways to improve on the road through technology and the like.
Mm-hmm. All right, so now we're going to move on to segment 3, which is a collaborative shift towards human-centred solutions. I'm going to ask you first, Kent. Your advocacy in honour of Harry has given meaning to your tragedy. How do you make young people take this issue personally before it's too late?
Yeah, I think it's Sam, it's definitely about behaviour, and it's about consequence, when you're behind the wheel, whether you're on the road or you're off the road. And that's a big part of the Harrison Payne Initiative, and one of the key sort of measures for us is education and awareness. So it's not just about awareness, but it's education, so real practical education around when you're behind that vehicle and you're driving that vehicle, it is a weapon. And if you get it wrong, there's serious consequences like what happened to Harry. And when I relate to behaviour and talk about behaviour is, we lost Harry on the beach because the driver was a reckless driver doing up to 100 kilometres an hour, and he chose that day to have poor behaviour behind the wheel, and the car rolled and Harry was ejected, so there was a choice on that day made by that driver to speed up the beach, and the consequence in that situation is Harry lost his life. So was it preventable? Absolutely. Should it have happened? It should not have happened. So Harry should be here today, and he should be with us and celebrating his 22nd birthday at the middle of this month. So.
To Russell, Fatality Free Friday is just one of several education-led initiatives by the ARSF. It's more than a single date, it's a movement. How is the initiative evolving, and how can we ensure it continues to resonate in a time of message fatigue?
Yeah, it's a great question, Sam. I think from its inception, Fatality Free Friday was about a cultural change, and the view was that if we could have a single day of no fatalities, well, then it proves that it's possible and that we can make that change every single day. And I think we've got to remember that every single Friday, at least 5 or 6 Australians are killed on our roads, and that's pretty much one of the most dangerous days you can be on the road. So it's about, again, changing the narrative, and it is an endurance event as well. You've got to keep at it every single day. And I think what's happened now is it's grown from a single day of action to now really 2 months of campaigning with a far greater reaching effect with the other things the foundation does. And I think one of the encouraging things we've seen is that from our latest research, 9 in 10 people are of the view that when they hear these messages, it does promote them to make a change. And 8 out of 10 choose to do something slightly differently. And that's what it's about. It's these 1%ers. If we can just shift the needle that little bit every single year, and then we're going to have this long-term change. And I've never been under the illusion that it's ever going to be an easy thing, because behavioural change is the most difficult thing to try and achieve. But our view is if the community voice is big enough, if the community knows that we have the answer to it, then you've got the facility to then try and promote these safer behaviours. And I think if we look at things for health or the environment, it's followed a similar trajectory. It's sometimes taken a long time to reach that critical point where change suddenly happens.
Kylie, Amy's long supported the ARSF and plays a crucial role in spreading awareness, but your commitment extends far beyond that. Can you tell us more about the other areas that you're investing in to drive down road trauma?
Amy and the Australian Road Safety Foundation have had a partnership since 2007, and together we've rolled out a number of initiatives. The most recent one is our Amy School Zone program, where we really highlight to drivers slow down. Remember, children are not as quick to think, and so we really highlight that. We've also, with the support of Russell and the team, we have our annual Amy Crash Index, where it highlights across the country hotspots where there are more accidents than there should be. So alerting drivers to those areas so they adjust their behaviours. And most recently, we've partnered with Driver Reviver, which is a great initiative that's launched through the holiday periods to encourage drivers who are on those longer journeys to stop at one of the many Driver Reviver spots, have a free cup of coffee, stretch the legs, get out of the car and have that break before you take the next leg of your journey. We have a number of initiatives that we're looking to roll out in 2026 with Australian Road Safety Foundation, so we're really excited about that.
Excellent. I know my sons and I love stopping at those little Driver Reviver things when we drive to Rocky, which we do a fair bit. So yeah, they're very good. Now we're going to move on to segment 4, which is putting a stop to road trauma for a fatality-free future. And I'm going to ask everyone on the panel to respond to this. If you could embed one behavioural shift into every Australian road user tomorrow, what would it be and why?
Just one?
Yes, just one.
I would have to say vision, like look as far ahead down the road as you possibly can and try and keep your eyes moving as much as possible. I think a lot of the times we live in a little world immediately in front of the bonnet. So the more that you can move your eyes around and look as far ahead as possible, that would be my number one thing, Sam, for sure.
I would say I'm probably the worst person to have in a passenger seat because I'm like, oh, they're braking, stop. Kylie, what's yours?
Put your mobile phone in the back seat. No call is important as somebody's life on the road. Mm-hmm. You do not need it. Wait till you get to your destination. Mm-hmm. Take that call.
What about you, Nick?
For me, it's the psychology behind it. I mean, everybody just think about the 1 or 3 or 7 people that you love and that are closest to you most, okay? That's what you do. This is before you just sit in the car and you just sit there and you say, these are the people I love the most, okay? And that's it. And so as you jump in the car, you've got to realise that everybody in the cars next to you, they're somebody's loved one. And flip it around too, you too are somebody's loved one. Don't kill yourself. And that's what you have to do. So it's about that behavioural change, but it's about the thinking behind it and saying, absolutely positively, I will do everything I can, just as Craig did, to arrive here today safely from all the high risk, high consequence, because every time you drive, it's high risk, high consequence.
Remember, my dad used to always say to me, the aim of good driving is to make sure your passenger has the smoothest ride possible.
Smart advice.
What about you, Kent?
Mine is patience, right? If you drive on the road, and Craig mentioned it as well, like driving here today, people weaving between lanes and people are in a rush, and you know, we know what the consequences are and it can happen. So take your time, slow down and have more patience and be courteous, you know, let people in and just take your time because, yeah, you can lose your life very quickly if you don't have patience.
What about you, Craig?
I get back to the awareness side of it. Like you just mentioned, you drive to Rocky. So if you live in a city and then you drive into a country area, to understand that, and you got different elements of animals and wildlife, but then vice versa, if you come from country to city, then you've got a raft of different rules and regulations of, you know, pedestrian crossings, everything else that you don't have out in the country. So just drive to the conditions and be aware. And I think Russell touched on it too. It's up to all the individuals. When we talk about the behaviour, it doesn't matter. It's not just the driver, it's the passengers, it's everyone else around. If you're not comfortable in that environment, speak up.
Oh, absolutely. A final question for all the panellists again. Let's finish today's event with a quick fire question. So in just one sentence, what's the one thing you want to see stop on our roads?
I think distraction. If there was one thing, it would be, again, as Kylie mentioned, the mobile phone. I think it's the biggest challenge we're going to be facing going forward. So definitely distraction from mobile devices.
Kylie?
Road rage? Yeah. Just think about the consequences of your behaviours and who might be observing that in the back seat, kids and the like.
Drink, drug, driving.
Kent?
For me, it's just speed. You know, speed is the biggest killer on our roads, on and off the road. So, you know, if everyone again can take their time, this is not one sentence, can take the time, you know, from a speed perspective, it'll make a massive difference.
Craig?
I think all the above. Like for me, I think we've covered it all. I'm down the end. But yeah, look, it's all that. There's you know, again, it just comes back to the individual having a responsibility for their actions.
For me, it's tailgating. I just find everyone tailgates these days. It's terrifying, especially when you don't have your own brake in front of you. Thank you so much for all of your insights today. Thank you for sharing your stories with us and your unwavering commitment to safer roads. What we've heard today has been raw, real and confronting at times, but what the conversation demands. Because road trauma, it's not just a number, it's not just a headline, it's not just one small moment in time. It's a child who doesn't graduate, it's a parent who doesn't get to see their child get married, it's a sibling who may never be able to live independently again, it's a ripple of death and injury with an aftermath that spreads through families, communities and changes lives forever. The moment time stopped is the theme of today's event, because it's a reality for far too many Australians. And the hardest part, so many of these moments didn't need to happen. But with the truth comes hope, because if these tragedies are preventable, then we have the power to stop them. The power to choose safer, the power to speak up, the power to shift a culture that too often treats road risk as normal or acceptable. The Australian Road Safety Foundation's research shows that we are inspired to make safer choices when we see road safety messaging. That's massive. It means that what we say, what we do, how we show up and how we speak up matters. So as we leave here today, let's carry forward what we've heard. Let's honour the lives lost by making different choices. Let's be the reminder someone needs. Let's be the reason someone gets home. Because road safety is a daily decision, it's a personal responsibility, and it's time that we gave it the attention that it deserves. Thank you again for being part of the conversation and for being part of the movement to put a stop to road trauma. Let's not wait until another moment stops time. Let's choose road safety today and unite to create a future that is free of road fatalities. Thank you.